Welcome back to Wisconsin Family. We're here in the office of Dr. Jay Hazen, Dentistry for Madison, here on West Washington Avenue. And we're excited to be talking with the man himself, Dr. Jay Hazen. How are you?
Good, guys. How are you?
Good.
Nice to see you both.
Thanks,
good to be back in here. Good to be talking with you. So now you have the title of cosmetic dentistry, and I understand with that comes multiple different common procedures. But today we're going to be talking about implants specifically. So tell us a little bit about what an implant actually is.
Okay. An implant is a really developed way to replace missing teeth using something very similar to the structure of the tooth, in that we're creating a root surface using titanium that's placed in the jaw, and then we attach a tooth to it. So it actually functions just like a real tooth would, and you can floss around it, you can clean around it, and there are a lot of similarities between an implant and a tooth.
Now, is this different from a veneer?
Yes. When we're talking about replacing a tooth or using an implant, we're actually replacing something that is lost. A veneer or a crown is usually placed over an existing tooth to improve its surface, its color, maybe its shape, and maybe restore wear or improve someone's bite. But an implant really is placed to replace a missing tooth where someone would have a space if that wasn't done.
Okay. Is that then the most common reason why someone gets an implant? Is to replace?
Yeah, usually we're replacing missing teeth, and you know, people can lose teeth for multiple reasons. They may have an accident where a tooth is actually broken to the point where it can't be replaced. They may crack a tooth because they're clenchers or grinders. They may have large fillings in a tooth, and over time the tooth just wears out, ends up being not able to be restored. And then again, if those teeth need to be removed, then they have a space, and a lot of things can happen if we don't replace those.
Right.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of those things, because you know, a lot of times people, I think, maybe hear cosmetic dentistry and they think, ooh, vanity, that's not for me. But this is something that is important, even if you get a tooth knocked out way in the back that people can't necessarily see. It's still just as important to get something like that replaced. So why is that?
Well, that's a really good point, because you know, I've said all along that cosmetics in cosmetic dentistry really goes hand in hand with function. And so that if your teeth fit together well, then you're going to have less wear and you're going to have less changes to those teeth. And so the cosmetic concern that people have often is a result of maybe habits that they might have. So let's say you lose a tooth, and if that happens, other things can happen. Maybe the tooth across from that space might start to shift downward. Maybe the tooth behind it might start to move forward. Pretty soon you've got spaces between your teeth that you didn't have before. And then, you know, it's kind of like a house of cards. Things start to change and not fit together as well, and you start to have some issues. So a missing tooth may, you know, somebody may say, let's get rid of that tooth that's bothering us. It may eliminate one problem, but create 3 or 4 others.
That's kind of like an elongated domino effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
What's the benefit then of getting an implant versus like getting a bridge?
Well,
you still do bridges, right? That's
yes.
Still, okay.
You know, we still do a lot of bridges, but mostly that's based on sometimes the function of that area. It may be related to, does the patient have enough bone that we can place an implant? And those are all things that we figure out. You know, I actually have a CAT scan here in the office so that I can look at things in 3 dimensions to see if patients are good candidates for implants. Bridges are something to somewhat probably fall back on more so than be our main choice. I'd rather replace a missing tooth with an implant if possible. Not always possible, but there are so many things we can do to create a good situation for the placement of an implant.
So let's talk a little bit about the look, because I'm sure that people are wondering, if they get a tooth in front knocked out, they're going to say, does this look natural? So I'm assuming you're able to make it look natural.
Oh, sure. I mean, every case is unique to that situation. And in some cases where there's been a lot of trauma, we may need to do a few things to prepare an area so that it looks really nice. But the materials that we can use look so natural these days. And because we're using CAT scans to place the implants, we're putting the implants where we want to for the end game. In other words, where the
Right.
crown's going to go. So we start with what we'd like, where we'd like the tooth to be supported, and then we go from there to decide where would the best place for this implant be, and then we look at that area to see if maybe hopefully that's possible.
And does it hurt to get an implant?
No, no, it really doesn't. I mean, of course, people are comfortable and anesthetized when we're placing an implant, but no, that's really not a concern. As a matter of fact, I'm always surprised when I call patients in the evening. I'll say, "How are you doing after today's procedure?" And they're like, "Did you really do something there?" I mean, I don't really feel that much. So, once in a while you might have a little bit of post-operative discomfort, but very rare.
I think that's one thing that's really important for people to hear, because I think that's, at least for me, that would be my biggest objection to going and getting a procedure done like that, is I'm worried, okay, is this going to set me back from work for 2 days or a week or whatever because I'm on painkillers or something like that.
Sure.
But the fact that, after they come down from the anesthesia, they function as normal, and I can hardly tell that something was even done.
That is usually the case, and a lot of times we're preemptively treating them with a little bit of anti-inflammatories, so that if you stay ahead of discomfort, you eliminate some of the swelling that could occur, then you don't have the pain. So it's all about being smart and knowing what to do, and not waiting until you have to do something.
Yeah, being proactive and not reactive.
Absolutely. You got it.
So let's talk a little bit about cost. We got about a minute left. Talk to us a little bit about cost. What are we looking at typically?
Well, every situation is different, and if we're replacing one tooth, we're looking at placing an implant. We're looking at replacing the tooth with a crown that would be attached to the implant. You could be looking at anywhere between $2,500 to $4,500, depending on what needs to be done per tooth. So it's not inexpensive, but if you think about it, an implant that's integrated, in other words, that takes and the body accepts it, like so many other things that we have done to our body, it's probably a lifelong restoration.
Right, and how often does somebody lose a tooth to where they would need that anyway? So I mean,
right.
$2,500 in the long run is really not a long.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's all on a situational basis when we look at costs. So consults are free of charge. Come in and let's talk about it.
Sounds good. Dr. Jay Hazen, thanks for having us here today.
Thank you both.
That's
good to see you.
All for us here today in Wisconsin's Family. From all of us here at Wisconsin 57, we'll see you next time.